Hello, my name is Jesse Park, and today I will be talking about the life of Pi. So, for a very brief summary, my book is about an Indian zookeeper named Pi Patel, and while moving to Canada, the ship is destroyed, leaving Pi alone, stranded in the middle of the ocean with a Bengal tiger. Throughout the book, it explores many different topics like the will to survive and the importance of animals, but I will be talking about religion today, and more specifically, the impact of Christianity on human lives. So it's interesting how devout and religious Pi is at such a young age. Despite growing under traditional Hinduism culture, Pi explores two other religions, Catholicism and Islam. Here's this quote that is said very early on in the book. I know zoos are no longer in people's good graces. Religion faces the same problem. Certain illusions about freedom plague them over both. Over recent years, people began to think that zoos aren't all that fun and enjoyable. I mean, they still are for us, but from the animal's perspective, us humans are limiting these wild and free animals into very confined spaces. One obvious and well-known example being the orcas at SeaWorld. But the fact of the matter is that people forget to realize that with freedom comes other dangers. For these animals, the dangers are very obvious biological threats: predators, lack of food, and environmental disasters that can destroy homes or even entire ecosystems overnight. The same is true for religion. Christianity as a whole is the most popular religion across the globe, but most non-believers dislike the religion because of its strict rules and boundaries. But these boundaries give structure and guidance to life. So while agnostics and atheists do have the pleasure and liberty to do whatever they desire, they also have to endure life's ups and downs the same way a wild animal does. So Pi enjoys the enclosures of religion as it gives him joy and a sense of safety through false reality, kind of like the Maze Runner. The author Yann Martel uses lots of literary devices, the most common being the different allusions and symbols that relate to the Bible. There are a couple points throughout Pi's survival journey where he loses all hope. In chapter 61, Pi is losing food, and his companion tiger is very hungry. Pi knows he needs to tame him. Pi knows he needs to tame him, but he doesn't have the tools or strength to do so. But miraculously, Pi feels a shift, a vibration in the air, and he is struck by a school of flying fish. Despite describing the impact of the fish as arrows striking his body, he is grateful for an easy and abundant source of food. While reading this, I thought of the Bible story of Moses. After the Israelites left Egypt, they were starving while wandering around in the Sinai desert. And when it seemed like all hope was lost, God provided them with manna from heaven. Manna was an edible food source, kind of like bread. Something else I noticed was how often Pi thanked God. Every little thing that happened to him, he never thought of it as a direct consequence of his own actions. Instead, he thought of them as blessings from the Jewish god Yahweh, or from Hindu gods, primarily Vishnu, the god of protection and preservation, a part of the Hindu triumvirate. This mindset, based on the external locus of control, reflects many Christians today, where successes and failures are all from external factors that we cannot change. So for my research element, I decided to research Hinduism in India. Hinduism is a massive part of India's culture, where 80% of the population consider themselves Hindus. Well, what exactly is Hinduism? It is the third most popular religion and the most popular polytheistic in the world. They believe in the continuous cycle of life, death, and reincarnation known as samsara. Their main goal is to achieve moksha, or salvation, which is when the continuous rebirth cycle ends to become a part of the absolute soul, or Atman. Also, the concept of karma is very important, which is the universal law of cause and effect. This goes off of some of their key principles, where human thoughts and actions have a direct impact on their current lives. Reading this, I thought it was pretty funny because it kind of contradicts Pi's attitude, like I mentioned before. Pi always thought of the big picture and never took credit for his own actions. Indians practice Hinduism in a multitude of ways, like the way they eat and dress, the drawing of the dot on the forehead, which is known as the bindi, a worship ritual prayer known as puja, and many more. So for my secondary literary source, I chose Fences. For my secondary source, since we all read it and watched it together, I don't think I need to summarize it. But how does my theme connect to fences? Well, once Rose finds out that Troy had an affair with another woman, she is absolutely destroyed. She feels so betrayed because she lived 17 years of her life with the sole purpose of caring for and supporting her husband. However, Rose doesn't make any rash, irresponsible decisions, and somehow has the energy and willpower to take in the child. The reason for this is because of her faith in God. She says that she is able to take in the child because she believes that the child did no wrong, so she shouldn't blame the baby for her father's mistakes. So she raises the child with unconditional love, the love that she couldn't express for Troy any longer. I also felt a similarity between Fences and my novel Life of Pi. Both Rose and Pi are struggling emotionally and physically because of their difficult situation. They both are stressed and they both lose hope. However, just like how Pi clings onto God while being stuck in the middle of the ocean, Rose also turns to God and clings onto her faith in order to get through difficult times. We see this in Scene 2 of Act 1, where Rose sings, "Jesus, be a fence all around me every day. Jesus, I want you to protect me as I travel on my way." Here Rose is praying for protection, but also she's praying that her love will keep her family in a safe environment, which is represented by the fence. So moving on to the explanation, because religion is somewhat of a touchy subject in school, I'll keep things broad and talk more about the physiological, psychological impacts of Christianity, and more so on the effects toward non-believers. So first things first, I want to talk about how Christianity can feel concealed and unwelcoming to the non-believer. One important aspect of the gospel is that all humans are born sinners, and God despises sin. No amount of sin can enter God's kingdom of heaven. However, Christians still know him as a loving and just God because it is the sin in us that he hates, not the people themselves. But unfortunately, some churches do not replicate this love, as they are imperfect human beings, and can oftentimes show unfair treatment toward non-believers. This is likely because everything is written and said from a believer's viewpoint, and it becomes harder to understand the mindset of a non-believer the longer one is involved in the church. So with that out of the way, here is how and why people look to religion. According to the psychologist Stephen Rice at Ohio State University, he found that people are attracted to religion because it helps them satisfy many of the 16 basic human desires that all people share. Researchers identified these 16 desires as acceptance, curiosity, eating, family, honor, idealism, independence, order, physical activity, power, romance, saving, social contact, status, tranquility, and vengeance. So, how much an individual values each desire, which goes with their personality, corresponds to what he or she may like or dislike about religion. For example, religion offers fellowship and gatherings for extroverts, but introverts may seek after meditation, and blessings through solitude. In a study published in the 2000s, Rice found that Christians expressed the importance of interdependence with others, while non-believers valued self-reliance and independence much more. Moving on, what are the benefits of practicing religion? A study of over 400 white men showed that those who regularly attend church had lower blood pressure on average than those who didn't. Also, posts on the social media of Christians reflected greater happiness and social connectivity compared to atheists. But if we look into this deeper, we find that things aren't so simple. People with moderate religious beliefs shared lower well-being than those who didn't have any religious affiliation at all. The reason for this is because the moderately religious people have conflicting implicit and explicit beliefs. What does this mean? Well, we'll take going to church on a Sunday morning as a simple example. A very religious and devout Christian will have no second thoughts on waking up early to go to church and practice his or her religion. On the opposite spectrum, a non-believer won't think twice about going to church. Instead, he or she will likely spend their time sleeping in or doing other things that will bring pleasure to them. But the moderate believer won't exactly know what to do. The person knows that it is morally right for them to spend their time well and go to church, but at the same time, he or she may want to stay home and ignore their values. So I think the takeaway is that religion can be a double-edged sword. For non-believers and lukewarm Christians, as they call it, Christianity may be stressful and hard to keep up with. but for others, clinging on to faith can be the very thing that can transform lives for the better. And that's basically everything I had prepared, so thank you for listening.